If you're thinking about your brand as a logo and some colors, then I want to try and reframe that. So your brand is not just your logo. It's not just the colors. It's not a slogan. In fact, what I want you to almost think of those as the clothes, and your brand is the person who's wearing them. Now, if you're in the early days, you can definitely get away with just slapping together some colors and logos and then just going and doing the work. I think that's fine. The hard work is going to get you somewhere. So it's a good starting place. But once you sort of get out of the survival, kick things off mode, at some point you're going to decide that you want to grow and you want to grow consistently. And if you want people to choose your brand and your business over others, especially if they're coming in cold, then you're going to have to do some real work. You're going to have to make sure that that brand has a personality, that people see the brand and feel like they connect with it. So again, think about your brand as a person, and all of those other attributes of the brand are sort of how you dress it, how you present it. Um, if you're still kind of thinking to yourself, well, the brand is just the decoration, the work, the people are the most important things, I'm not going to tell you that that's wrong or that that's incorrect, or that those things aren't important. They're eminently important. But your brand is the first version of those people being presented, right? So those people, in fact, they're so important that your brand has to get some TLC so that it properly represents them. And remember too that your brand isn't just representing your business to the outside world. Your brand actually is doing the same thing internally within the business. So you're representing yourself to your employees. In fact, you're representing yourself to your operations, your standard operating procedures, how you actually run your business. A casual, lighthearted brand is going to push that behavior downward into your business. You're going to build culture around that. And that could be great, but maybe you're more of a, maybe the way your business runs is actually more of a healthy grinding business where things are a little bit serious. Your conversations with your clients are more serious conversations. Typically, it's probably not always appropriate to laugh if your main business is like emergency plumbing repair, right? So somebody's kitchen is full of water. You don't want to come in there acting like a silly person. You want to come in there acting like an expert who's serious and wants to fix things, and you want your employees to feel that way. Well, your brand is going to set the tone for all of that. Okay, so I've belabored the point. I think you're starting to get it, but I want to keep having this discussion today. And honestly, there's no way we're not going to keep bringing brand up again and again and again throughout this podcast, because it is such a big part of how you run your business. But first, let me introduce the Tenfold Founders Podcast. My name is Arthur Tew, and we are on a mission to equip faith-led entrepreneurs to build thriving businesses that serve God's kingdom. And like always, I am joined with my two best buddies here and partners, Sydney Andress and Josh Staub. Sydney, Josh, how's it going?
Good.
Yeah?
Found out my 2-year-old got bit on the playground.
Oh, no. Was it deserved?
By a child or by a bug
Yeah,
or
right.
a snake?
It could have been a werewolf, but she is normally the perpetrator. So this is
Goodness, it's a biter.
Yeah.
I can't believe she's a biter. Who does she get that from? Who's the biting parent that taught this behavior?
She got it from the dog, not me.
Are you telling me that you have a biting dog in the house? Now I'm really worried.
Oh, I know. He does. They play. But
yeah.
Josh, did your kids get bit in school or?
There were definitely some bites. I don't remember the circumstances around it, but yeah, I remember. And they won't tell you who it is either.
No,
it's like very coy about it.
They're the FBI, and
that's ridiculous
to the public.
Yeah, it's like, well, at least can you make sure that they're not together? Like, can you separate the biter from my child? Yeah.
We have a child that's in their class coming over this weekend. Can you maybe give me some indication of whether or not this is a biting sort of a child? Like, blink once for yes kind of a thing. Yeah. So,
yeah, it definitely teaches you like just to roll with the punches, because I know she's going to do
roll
it
with the bites
right back. Yeah. Sometimes she has done that too, where she's pushed somebody down and then they retaliated, and then she just went right back at him, and I'm like, who is this fighter?
You also don't want them to be soft. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
she is coming out strong, swinging. So I'm really proud of her because my husband and I both are pretty docile creatures.
You say that. I've known you long enough to have seen your hackles up. To go back to the dog theme, which maybe that wasn't a very good. Maybe I should abandon the dog theme. Actually, now that if I'm gonna
abandon the brand of dog theme.
Yeah, use it as a metaphor for my partners. But well, anyhow, I want to chat with you all about branding. I know that you both are experts in brands and that you've worked with lots and lots of different brands. You've seen good brands, you've seen bad brands, you've seen brands change over time, which is a topic that I want to kind of touch base on. You've seen, companies with no brand. When do you think is the right time for an entrepreneur to start thinking about their brand?
It's almost always the first thing. Like when you're thinking about a name and you're thinking about like, hey, what's it going to look like? That's the fun part, or it can be for getting started. But I mean, I think it just happens naturally in the beginning. That's exciting. It's the thing that you gravitate towards because you're creating this thing out of nothing. And what's that going to look like? What's it going to talk like? What's it going to act like?
Yeah. Well, all right. So if you're thinking about it from day one, give me three, and I know there's many, but give me three factors or considerations that need to be on your mind when you're starting to define the brand.
Yeah. I'll kind of whittle it down to two just because three is hard for me to think of off the top of my head. But
even better. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's two things that you're constantly fighting with a brand. It's the way that you want to be perceived, but then like how your audience will actually perceive you, how your audience will take things. I think the plumbing example was a great great illustration of, hey, you don't want to come across funny, even if that's your personality, if somebody's got their pipe busted and they just lost tens of thousands of dollars of things in their home. So there's the way that the customer is going to see you, but then you're also always fighting that vanity of self, like wanting to be cool or wanting to be like, I want to project this with my brand, but how is that going to be received or perceived and received by my customers? So
yeah,
there's that dichotomy there. I think are the two things that that are potentially in conflict or potentially together when you're starting. But I think that's where you start, is like, how do I want to be perceived? But also, how is that going to look if I put myself in my customer's shoes? How is that direction that they're seeing going to influence the way that I brand myself?
Yeah, I'm going to riff on that for just a second. I don't want to reframe it, but to state it slightly differently, when you're thinking about your brand, you have to meet the customer where the customer is. And, the customer is, sometimes the place that your customer is going to be really broad and kind of all over the place. Sometimes it's going to be more specific. But while you're trying to do that, you also have to be, sort of true to yourself, right? You're the figurehead of the brand, especially as a small business. And if you and your brand have completely different personalities, then it's going to be really different. You're going to have sort of a crisis of identity where your employees, where the people that you're talking to, your customers, your vendors, they're trying to understand, okay, who is this company really? Is it the founder who speaks one way, or is it the brand that they're presenting, which is completely different? Does that make, are we saying the same thing?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Sydney, what are some of your, when you're stopping and assessing that first, swing at bat when you're building out a brand, what are the things that you're really thinking about?
One of them is, does this communicate your unique selling proposition well enough? Does it set you apart from your competitors? Does it communicate, the best aspects of what you do? And if it's too generic or it's too nuanced, like you'd have to be like in the in crowd of this to know what this means. That sometimes proves difficult. I also would strongly suggest considering looking into some SEO when you're naming your business, because if your brand name is too close to a competitor, you might end up having a lot of customer confusion. You can get, sued if it's too much like it, especially if your color scheme is the same exact way. That I've seen that happen before. But what is somebody going to search in Google? And how are they going to come across you? Think about it also like the phone book. Like, do you want to be listed toward the beginning of your category or
Yeah.
middle or in the end? Same thing with Google. Like, you need to think about how people are going to find you online, because that is really where your customers are going to find you.
Yeah. I love it. So when I'm thinking about a brand, I'm normally going through a pretty standard process that I like to use, a framework that I like to dig into. And we talk about this a lot within the Tenfold Founders community. But I need to do a few things. First, I need to make sure that I understand the problem that I'm solving. Right. So when we think about the problem, right, sometimes it's a serious problem, sometimes it's lighthearted. These things are going to, if it's a medical issue, that's a real serious topic. You don't want a cartoon logo. You don't want you don't want puppy dogs and things like that in your branding. You want it to look really professional and tight. If you're doing something like dog walking, you do want the cartoon puppies, right? You want it to be really fun and bubbly and exciting and make people feel, you want to relieve all their stress and make them feel like, okay, my dogs are in a good spot and it's going to be happy and I'm going to be happy too. But you have to know what problem you're solving first. And then once you understand that problem, then you need to understand the person who has the problem, right? So you're always serving an audience. There's a specific subset of people that you should be able to identify, that you should be able to name, that are going to be dealing with this particular problem. And so again, let's say it's a medical issue, and or let's say you're in chiropractic and you're dealing with sore backs, right? Well, there's going to be certain people who are more likely to do that. It's not going to, your average customer isn't going to be 18 to 24 years old, perfectly fit. You're probably got to cater to an older audience, and you can start to brand against that. Versus, like I said, if you're that dog walker, well, you know that the subset of people are dog owners, right? And dog owners, you can begin to profile who those dog owners are because of the fact that they have pets, right? There's going to be certain things that you can build out around that. So that's the next piece, is trying to identify who that customer is. And then the third piece is, how are you communicating to them? So the channels that you use to communicate, and this is a cyclical thing, just so you know, you're constantly refining these things. You don't do it once and set it unless you're, unless you get lucky or you're huge and you are able to refine it. But even if you look at the biggest brands out there, Apple, et cetera, McDonald's, look at all the different versions of their brands over the course of the last 50 years.
Coca-Cola's logo, even.
I mean, constantly, right?
It's they've tweaked it.
Yeah.
So what do you think that is? Like, just to dig into that a little bit, because it does spark some interesting conversation. Because if these huge, well-known, like McDonald's logo was probably really well known in the 80s, but it looks, I'm sure, just a little bit or slightly different, or different than today. But what do you think that is the driving, like, for these bigger brands where it should be just ingrained in memory? Why deviate? Why change?
It's a great question. I think so. First off, there's rebranding, and then there's brand refinement. Those are two very different things, right?
Yeah.
And the rebrands are big. That's a name change. That's a totally new logo design. It's a new color palette. And these, in my experience, these things typically happen when one of the things that I just described changes, right? And the third thing that I was describing is the medium, the channel that you use to communicate. So if you always do print media and that's how you communicate, and then everything goes digital, well, the thing that looked good in print media doesn't really look as good in digital, or it may need to alter for that medium. If all of a sudden the problem that you're solving changes and the audience then changes, then the taste of that audience is going to change. And so big changes like this might lead to a rebrand. I think the
Yeah.
brand tweaking is a little bit more subtle. I think the brand tweaking is more about operating in modernity, or like in that day and age. Um, as durable as you want your brand to be, and as durable as you think it is, um, if it is a legacy look, right?
Yeah.
So if McDonald's, if you look at their original golden arches, it was textured, it had drop shadow, it had all of these things that were modern at the time. But if you were to look at that now, it becomes like a classic sort of throwback brand. The problem is that when you look at the branding that way, now you're going to apply that to their food and their offerings. And when you're trying to launch all these new, like, hey, this is McCafe, our new line of specialty coffee drinks, you don't want to think that they've got a percolator back there, right, on a wood fire, like slow dripping coffee for you. You want to think that they got espresso machines, like all these cool things. And the brand and the logo wouldn't serve that. So what you're trying to do is maintain the core sort of heart or soul of the brand, while putting, again, you're just changing the clothes a little bit, right? Just changing the cut on the jacket, essentially.
The bell bottoms
So
away and get out some skinny jeans or something.
please don't. But yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, that's
Neither.
exactly right.
Well, I'm thinking of Walmart and how, I mean, I obviously am from that region of the world, so I think for them, when it was Walton's Five and Dime, it was it was in the Bentonville Square, and then they got their first store in Fayetteville, and then it just kept going, and now they're a global brand and have changed their logo to match. I think it was because they had expanded and grown so much. I think growth sometimes changes the way you look at your brand.
It does. And I would say that goes back to, I think, I'm going to keep doing this because of my own personal bias, but that goes back to those same three things I was just talking about, right? If you go global, then your audience is going to change, and your mediums to reach those audiences are also going to change. You're going to use different techniques. And so it almost necessitates that you alter your brand. And for those big global brands, sometimes they even have slightly different versions depending on where you're engaging with the brand.
Mm-hmm.
Were you going to say something, Josh? Sorry.
No, just I love it. I love the way that this is going too, because it takes some of the pressure off of trying to nail it on the first go. I just looked up Walmart's a great example, Sydney. I just looked it up in the browser here of the evolution. Like if you just type in Walmart logo evolution, good gosh, they've come a long way.
Yes,
modernizing.
I mean, it's been cool for me to grow up in that area and to watch the evolution of it, and to have friends now that work there and their explanations of why the brand is changing so much. And they also went from having, a majority, I think it was actually all male board, to having some females on the board as well. And I think that has also shaped the brand a lot, because they have started to think about what the female consumer would be attracted to in a different way. And that's another thing that should probably be considered as well. If your brand is strictly for men or for children or for women, you want to make sure that all of that lines up as well, and that it's communicating the right message to that gender.
Yeah.
Because Arthur, you and I have worked with a brand that was trying to be something, but a lot of their imagery was kind of like black and white, dark colors, but they were trying to communicate hope and all of those things. And so sometimes when you're too close to the brand, I think you can also have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're highlighting, I think, two things with that example. One, again, back to the three things I was talking about, their audience changed, but back to what Josh was saying, their leadership changed, right? And so they're aligning the brand to better match kind of that, again, meet the founder where the founder is, or meet the board where the board is, or meet the owner where the owner is, so that the brand can sort of create cohesion from the highest level conversation down to that lowest level conversation. And so one thing, so Josh, you started to veer into one of the topics I brought up at the beginning, or in the intro, at least I think I did, where we're looking at changing a brand. And we've kind of hit on reasons that you might do it. Can you do it? I think a lot of people I liken this to people changing their pricing, which is probably the most sort of scary change that I hear creating atrophy or lack of action in owners is the price piece. The second is probably the brand, though. I can't change my brand or else people won't know who I am anymore. People won't get it. That's just not true. The brand is crucial, but the brand, McDonald's, Apple, Walmart, all these brands, they're evolving over time. The thing that you have to do, though, is you have to decide, is it a rebrand or is it a brand update, brand tweak, brand refinement? And even if it's a larger scale rebrand, the thing there is rollout. How do you go and make sure that you're communicating to your existing customers that the brand is changing, and you roll it out in a way that excites the brand? And so the way you need to think about that is you need to tie the change of the brand to the value of the service or offering. So if you can roll a new brand out and get in front of your audience, you've got the right medium, you've got the right communication channels, and essentially convince them that, hey, look at this new branding. This new branding represents better results for you. And that's the messaging. It's super simple. Like, just nail that messaging so that when they see the new brand and they associate with the new brand, they're not associating it with a change of vendor or this, because there's a lot of trust in the brand, right? You trust the brand, you trust the person, you feel like you have a relationship. But when when your spouse goes and gets a big haircut or changes their style, you know that it's still them, even though the look has changed quite a bit, right? And you can even get excited and have fun with it. You got to create that same thing with the brand. It's still us, but I'm going to be presenting and delivering even better. And I wouldn't repeat that to your spouse or use that as marital. This is not marital advice, by the way.
That got me laughing because I love the point about better results for you. Like, this new brand is going to create even better results for you. But even just coming back to the three things that you mentioned before, the essential output of those three inputs is results. So like the founder, the customer, and where you're meeting them, the mediums, like the output of that is the result for the customer. So creating the brand like, we could end the podcast right here with what you said. The brand should reflect great results for your customer. And then you got me laughing because like that new haircut comes in and like, oh yeah, Laura's looking a little better today. Better results for me.
Better results. I mean, you said it, not me, but I may have implied it. Hopefully that landed okay. But
I chuckled because of your mustache, Arthur. That not everyone knows. This is not Arthur's year-round look. He changes it up.
Well, I thought I grew it overnight. So it was one of those. Actually, facial hair and so the reverse of cutting and instead growing is actually a really good example of brand refinement over time, right? So you're refining your brand, you're changing those simple things, and if you're adding a beard as opposed to taking it away, it's almost guaranteed it's more of the refinement. I love this analogy. I mean, I love that we're just destroying it. I just beating it to death. But this is what we do over here, guys. We beat things to death. But the
not our customers.
Yeah, not typically. But yeah, no, it happens over time. The change happens over time, almost to the point that it's like you wake up one morning and you realize, oh wait, you have a beard. It feels like it happened overnight, but or you inversely think, well, you've always had a beard, right? You just forget that they didn't have it because it came in so gradually and you didn't necessarily see it in that stark. It's not there, now it is. So anyways, so changing brands, don't be afraid of it. You can absolutely change your brand. People do it all the time. Also your pricing, not to get back to that, but so I want to talk about actual brand misalignment a little bit more. So I was thinking, and I'm really bad at analogies, but I was thinking earlier today, you've got this brand, and the brand is called, Grooms and Cuts. And you look at it and you think, what does that brand do? And you're probably thinking, well, maybe like a dog groomer or something like that. But no, it's a law firm. Right? Grooms and Cuts are two partners. They got this law firm, and the way Grooms and Cuts looks as a law firm is very different than the way Grooms and Cuts looks as a mobile dog grooming business. And so this, I'm just thinking there's so many really good brands. I love using Apple as an example because they're just such branding geniuses. But Apple, if you didn't know it as the technology and hardware company that it is and content company that it is, you're just as likely to assume it's a produce company. And it's not until you start to see the full breadth of the brand that the brilliance is revealed, and it starts to make really, really good sense. And the reason that it does that is because of the cohesion of all aspects of the brand. So you could see a brand, you could see most of you, who follow the brand at all, you can see a product and know, even if it's a new product or a new phone, right away, like that's an Apple design product. If it's a computer without the logo on it, that it's Apple because everything that they do looks and feels like Apple. And so I want you to try and apply that to your brand. So let's say I love going to lawn care. So let's say you're a lawn care brand and you serve high-end high-end customers and clientele. Every aspect of your work and of your brand needs to have that high-end fingerprint on it. So for instance, when you get done with the yard, there's not a grass clipping left on the ground, right? You can't find anywhere where, there's chunks of that holly bush lying around underneath. You clean up every single aspect of it. And if you do this well enough and you apply these principles well enough, people can get to the point where they walk into a yard and be like, oh, you must have, Josh and Sydney's lawn care over here doing your work. Like you can just tell how good the work is. You see this with custom home builders all the time. You go in and you see the trim and the detail and how they like to trim out the house. And immediately like, oh, that's a Clay Sessoms home. I can tell for sure that he did this. Any other examples or any other areas in a business that might not be as intuitive, like logo, slogan, colors, where you think the brand can really stand out? Communication, for instance, like communication style.
Communication style. I think it's easier on these tangible references. So the intangibles are a little bit harder because it's all of that.
I'm thinking of Wendy's on Twitter.
Oh, that's a really good intangible one. The way that they communicate. Yeah.
They're so sassy. Arthur, I don't know if you follow Wendy's.
No, but tell me about it.
But they roast their customers and they also
that's so funny.
They troll their competitor Twitter accounts as well. So if somebody like writes to McDonald's, their social media manager will comment on it and say something like, well, you would have had a better experience at Wendy's. So it's like very how do you describe it, Josh? It's not like satirical, but it's just trolling. It's just so funny.
Yeah, trolling.
Their sales have been impacted by this change in social media managers.
That's cool.
This is a really good example. It's just one of theirs said something like, this is in 2017, but today we've announced that by mid-2018, all our quarter pounder burgers at the majority of our restaurants will be cooked with fresh beef. And then Wendy's says, at McDonald's, so you'll still use frozen beef in most of your burgers across all the other restaurants. What? So funny. Oh gosh, I can't even get it out. It's so funny. It says, so you'll still use frozen beef in most, all caps, most of your burgers in all of your restaurants, asking for a friend.
I love it.
They just troll so hard. And then it's like, yeah, Wendy's. Like, I'm going to Wendy's. Like, this is awesome.
They can be so buttoned up and professional, and they choose to do that route of their voice is that way, and it works for them. It wouldn't work for every brand. But they outdo McDonald's and Taco Bell and, all these other fast food chains on Twitter every single time.
I just read a study and I could probably take a minute and look it up, but I just have to take my word for it. And they were ranking fast food restaurants in different ways, and Wendy's was ranking highest among like 65 and older. So their demographic is a lot older. And so I think what you're probably seeing with these advertisements is a direct response to that and some brand refinement trying to pull in younger audiences. They see what's happening, and so they're using these sort of pithy, sort of modern comedy, like punchy campaigns to try and drive in, zennials and millennials to their store because they know that their current primary audience is beginning to age out.
Mm-hmm.
So just another really, really interesting example of when to refine and when to shift and when to tweak. And it also highlights the fact that not only should you not be afraid of changing your brand from time to time. And sometimes, and it's okay to be a little bit afraid, but sometimes it's actually necessary. You have to do it. It's not a what happens if I do this? What are the bad things that could occur? It's what's going to happen if you don't do it.
I think the types of ambassadors you have speaking for you, or the collaborations that you do. Some businesses will do this. Like you see the bigger ones where Sephora brought in the Love on the Spectrum cast. Like they have nothing to do with one another, but it was such a wholesome, wonderful ad, and they got so much positive response. I think that figuring out who you want to speak for you, also, if it is not you, can also further your brand, reach people that you're not used to reaching,
Mm-hmm.
get you some positive PR as well. You just want to be super careful that it's in alignment with your overall goals, who you choose to work with on that front.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. I love that feedback. Okay, cool. So, uh, I mean, what else? I feel like the brand at the end of the day, like I said, it needs to represent a lot of different things. It's okay to shift it and move it. It's okay for it to be, um, it's okay for it to be immature at first, but at some point you want to refine it. And I guess maybe that's my next question is, at what point do you feel like, or what are some of the triggers or signs that someone can be on the lookout for that would tell them they need to up their brand game, that they need to maybe take a step back, take a beat, put some resources towards improving their brand position?
The cheat code, you already have a list of customers. Like if you're in business, I guess less so if you're starting, but you can still ask people, ask your customers, ask those close to the
That's great.
business, or even ask people that might be unfamiliar or not even need your services to give a completely unbiased opinion on, hey, what is this? How does this speak to you? Like, this is what I'm going for. Or maybe tell them what you're going for after you get their feedback. But I mean, after every conversation or every customer you pull in, that's a fresh set of eyes that, like, why did you choose us? Was it the brand? What did the brand say to you? Um,
Yes.
it's a good
Mhm.
conversation starter.
Do you think that so when you say that, do you think for most, again, sort of small startup businesses, just direct conversation, direct, feedback approach of, bringing it up during one-on-one engagements is enough, asking 10, 15, 20 different customers and acting on that? Or do you think that, would you be an advocate of trying to do something more scientific, running surveys, having
Yeah.
people? Yeah,
If you have that at your disposal, the more data, the better. I think it's
you
Reid
sure?
Hoffman. I don't remember who it is that said that. I think he's the founder of LinkedIn, but he said, if you've waited to get 70% of the information you needed to make a decision, you've waited too long, something
Mm,
along those lines. But so you're never going to get all of the answers. And that's the thing. The brand is kind of ethereal at times. Like what you're saying, it's almost liquid. You hold it, but it evolves and it can change, and that's okay. But if you can't get that data through surveys, if you're big enough to send out surveys and have a big enough list, but just have those intentional conversations.
yeah. So mine is, if you're thinking about making a big investment in something that is going to be branded, then you probably want to get your brand right first. So just some examples of that. If you're going to go get a huge sign,
Yeah.
Well, don't go spend 5, 10, 20, 30, $40,000 on a huge sign if you haven't nailed your brand.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to build a really awesome website, don't go spend 5, 10, 20, 30, $40,000 on a really awesome website before you get your brand right. If you're going to go wrap all your trucks, you got 3 or 4 trucks that you're going to go wrap. Don't go do that unless you've gotten your brand right. So I think Josh's feedback is a really good preemptive way to react to actual audience reactions. My sample um is a binary one. Like
Like
there's
a
no
Kairos moment.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You have to do it. Yeah, well said, Josh. So John, or excuse me, Sydney, what are your thoughts? Any particular triggers that people should be on the lookout if they're going to
Mm-hmm.
consider changing their brand?
Mine is the good old fashioned gut check. If you don't like your brand,
Gosh,
if,
so
if
simple.
if it doesn't align with your values, if you want to be the most trustworthy electrician, then does your brand communicate trust? Does it scream trust? If your value as like a gym industry owner is this is a fun place to be, does your logo communicate fun? Does it communicate fitness? The words that you would use to describe your business, if it's not reflected in your logo, then you already know. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably are interested in rebranding, or you've bought a business. I know someone here in Tulsa that bought a carpet cleaning business from a retiree and it was not in alignment with him, the branding. It was in alignment with the previous owner, and he was worried that he would lose out on all of the customers that he had cultivated relationships with. But he ended up pulling the trigger and doing a brand refresh.
Yes.
All of his vans to look like and feel like his young, I think he was 24 years old when he bought it. And they're everywhere now. I mean, I see them all over town. And I think that it's because he's been successful in this rebrand. And it was him following his gut and making the brand look like him.
I love it. That's great. So all really, really good points. When you get ready to start working on your brand, just a couple other real simple things to keep in mind. Go find other brands that you like, find other brands in the industry, see what people are doing. If you're in a larger industry where your service or product is not novel, what are the big guys doing? What do they look like? They're typically going to be a little bit, and there are certainly examples of when that's not the case, but go find the big leaders in the space and um, pull away what you like about those brands and try and apply it. Ask the people who know you whether or not your thoughts match your personality. Don't be, I love Sydney's example of be your own judge, but also don't discount the opinions of those around you. At the end of the day, you need to make your decision based off of um, a wide range of data sets and inputs. If you're not doing that, then you need to already be a branding expert. And if you're a branding expert, you're probably doing that, or you need to go work with a branding expert, like us or somebody else out there who can really help you do that work. Again, if you're going to go spend money on other things that are going to be branded, then make sure that what you're branding them with is a really, really good brand. At the end of the day, you need to think about your brand as an extension of your person or as a person in itself. And the brand that you want to build or the person that you want to create is one that your customers are going to want to spend time with, that your customers are going to trust and want to build a relationship with. So hopefully all of this is helpful, that this is useful information. Again, I'm certain that we will continue to talk about branding as long as this podcast is being recorded. But for now, I just want to say a quick prayer for everybody here, our audience, as you go into the rest of your week. So if you just take 1 second. Heavenly Father, we come to you to just thank you for giving us this opportunity to have this conversation. We pray that the words and the insights that are coming out of this podcast are ones that are useful. We pray for thriving and success for all of the businesses that are doing good works that serve your kingdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you guys. Good to see you. Have a great weekend. Bye.